I mean, nothing about Hillary. It's all about going out.
All right, if I eat and drink, guess what I don't have to do?
Come on.
Wear a mask. As long as I eat and drink.
I'm not. 22nd at 4:30.
To her spot.
Brian, culprit.
I'm kind of keeping a low profile,
You want to not? Well, don't do it.
Did you see my Facebook post with the flying lesson?
I did.
Oh my gosh.
Not with
Oh, that was so. I'm gonna do it again.
Me?
category of your own.
Yeah, I am a category of my own.
You know, I don't totally agree with that.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that either.
I'm gonna move this.
No hurry.
Having real experience in the field. I didn't do over under with. Yeah, we're gonna definitely.
Good morning, everyone. I'll call this regular meeting of the Board of Trustees to order and ask for a pledge of allegiance. If Jennifer Rose, if you could lead us today, please. Would the clerk please conduct a roll call?
Yes. Trustee Carey,
Here.
Trustee Chaplin,
Here.
Trustee Cunningham,
Here.
Trustee Ginoli,
Here.
Trustee Jay,
Present.
Trustee Kramer,
Here.
Trustee Safraza, and Trustee Sperber.
Here.
Skipped me.
Thank you. We do have a quorum today. Oh, sorry. Oh, I skipped. I'm sorry.
Trustee Rose.
I'm
I
here.
did skip you, sorry.
He is here.
All set then. We'll proceed now to public comment. Do we have any public comment at this time?
No public comment.
Okay. This will take us to approval of the agenda. I would like to move item 5 to right after this agenda item. Item 7, I'm sorry. It is 7.1, just to improve that part of it. May I have a motion with that change, please?
Move to accept change as presented. Richard J.
Second, Art Sperber.
In favor?
Aye.
Then that will carry. That takes us to item 4, which is the approval of 2 sets of minutes. 4.1 is the approval of minutes from our regular meeting of January. I did move it up. Okay, I got to get on my game here. Okay, we're on item 7.1, and this is the SWOPE Middle School Partner in Education Recognition. Please proceed.
Good morning, everyone. Chair Carey, trustees, CO Griffin, Lori, staff, visitors, and of course our friends from SPOPE and our partner in education. Before we begin, I'd like to first talk just a little bit about and draw your attention to the Valentine treats that you have in front of you. We have a special event coming up on Monday, Valentine's Day, the Kindness Takes Flight team will be passing out some of those treats to visitors, passengers, and staff throughout the terminal and post-security. So we've got our signs ready. You see our signs there, and some are for human consumption, some are for your puppies, so don't mix up the two when you leave here.
Really?
I was gonna eat one.
Yeah.
We love our Pause for Passenger teams, and they'll be out in full force too. So we have chocolate hearts, hand sanitizers, and I'd like to give a quick shout out to our front desk staff, Diana Vega and Lori Cordano, who assembled all of those for us. And then, of course, Mary Lee Mansfield, who spearheaded it within our department, and the marketing team, who really coordinated and organized so much of what our passengers and guests will see on Monday. So wanted to fill you in on that fun, but now I'm really delighted to present to you two amazing young ladies in their winning work of art, which help raise money for those less fortunate in their school community. I'd like to invite Peyton Crawford and Anna Fatino Mack to come up, along with Swope Middle School staff, Principal Mike Nakashima, culinary arts teacher Tracy Shannon, and librarian Lori Wiegren. So the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority and Swope Middle School have been partners in education through Washoe County School District since 1993. Over the years, the airport has supported a variety of Swope fundraisers, as well as career fairs and student-assisted projects like the Holiday Food Drive. In fact, Lori from Swope will speak to that program in just a couple of minutes. So we've also been fortunate to welcome Swope musicians and singers who entertain the airport passengers during the Sounds of the Season event at Christmas. And these are just a few ways our partnership has flourished over the many years we've been together. One of the more fun projects, and why we're here today, is to talk about the Gingerbread House Contest fundraiser. It's been an airport favorite since 1996. So how the contest works is the culinary arts program at Swope. The students create decorative gingerbread houses that are displayed in the connector outside of Timber Ridge Restaurant for 6 weeks, starting at Thanksgiving until after New Year's. The program gives airport passengers and staff the opportunity to vote for their favorite gingerbread house by placing money in the slot nearest their house of choice. And little do they know, they simultaneously help Swope's selected charity each year. This year, I'm pleased to announce that a record $2,585 was raised, and each week during the contest, those monies were collected and counted by Leah Williams and Kim Taglia from our amazing accounting team, are in the back. The winning gingerbread house, called Santa's Farm, received the most donations, totaling $577.64. You see it displayed here in the center of the room, and it gives you an appreciation for the talents of all of the culinary students at Swope Middle School. And this one in particular, obviously, was made by Peyton and by Anna. So congratulations to you two young ladies. If everybody can please put your hands together. Round of applause. Okay, so if you haven't already seen the other 6 houses while passing through the airport over the holidays, we've displayed them along the back, so have a look before you go. And the second and third place winners are identified by the ribbons in front of those houses. So this year, Swope decided to share the proceeds with families in their school community who have been severely impacted by layoffs and illnesses due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So on behalf of Reno Tahoe Airport Authority, it's my pleasure to present the Swope staff a check for $2,285 for Swope families in need. And the additional $300 will be set aside, as we do every year, for seed money that supports this program each consecutive year. So here is a special check. And then the real money is there.
Can't cash that one.
The real checks. So I'd like to give SWOPE an opportunity, the staff, to say a few words, if we could, Chair Carey.
Please.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Principal Mike Nakashima with Swope Middle School, and I just want to thank you all for continuing the Partner in Ed collaboration with Swope Middle School. Lisa Gianoli, she and I know each other somewhat from Ely, Nevada, so it's good to see friendly faces. I know that our students were probably almost as nervous as I was as far as coming into this room until they saw that you did the Pledge of Allegiance like we do every morning, and then took attendance, so it helped them feel a little bit more comfortable. I will say that we can't do half the things that we've done over the last couple of years without our teachers, our librarians, our counselors, and so I wanted to invite them up to speak. Tracy Shannon has been doing this since she started at Swope Middle School, and it was actually one of her interview questions was whether or not she would be willing to do the gingerbread celebration with the Airport Authority with our partner in Ed. So that was one of the most important things when it came to her hiring, and she's sure to. When I started at Swope Middle School about 2 years ago, she was sure to bring that up with me, and I've been lucky enough to have Annie keep me on track, as well as Janelle. And then most recently, we started the collaboration with our Caring Campaign to support our food drive with Lori Wagren, our librarian. So I'd like to introduce Tracy Shannon, our culinary arts teacher.
So I will say that after that interview, I learned how to do gingerbread houses really fast. And that was 2004, so been here a few times. Anyways, we are thrilled to be here, especially after last year when we weren't able to due to all the restrictions. The kids were super excited. It's a big deal at our school, kind of a tradition. And they did really well. I was pleased that they chose, to support some families at our school. It's a huge need, especially with this pandemic. Last week, faculty members went. Okay. They took some food to a family that had nothing in their cupboards, nothing in their fridge. So, it is out there, and so we're pleased to be able to help them. I'm very proud of Peyton and Anna, two very good students, wonderful young ladies, and that's, one of the perks of my job is to get to work with kids like this. So I also wanted to thank all the people involved in setting up the houses, counting the money, doing the signage, and taking down the display. I know that's a lot of work as well. So very happy to be in a partnership with all of you. Thank you so much, and I'll look forward to next year. And I'd like to introduce Lori Wegren now to talk about the food drive.
I'm Lori Wagren, and the librarian at Swope Middle. And another tradition that we have is to do a holiday food drive in partnership with the Airport Authority. This year, we were able to put together 31 very large baskets for our own families. And like you heard Mr. Nakashima and Ms. Shannon say, there's quite a need at Swope, especially around the holidays. So, and this year especially, Mr. Lau and his team, last minute, I'm sure you were all aware, a lot of snow and inclement weather started to show up. And we were very concerned about how we were going to get the food to Swope. But he pulled it off, and he got it there, saved the day, and we were able to get the baskets out before the kids were out of school. So we couldn't do it without your support, without Mr. Lau and his team's support. So thank you very much.
So along those lines, I'd also like to recognize our staff, three individuals in particular. Lori alluded to John Lau, who really helps our department in facilitating the food drive every year. But the real heavy work typically falls on our staff at the warehouse, and we have Robin and we have Tracy Pauley. So Robin Roberts and Tracy Pauley, who help every year transport the food over to Swope, and we couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much, really. Okay, so Chair Carey, that concludes the presentation. If you wouldn't mind, if we took just a few pictures in front of the house with the staff before we move on, would that be okay?
Absolutely, please.
Okay, great. So if you want to grab the check, and we'll kind of gather in the back.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 4.1 and 4.2. These are approval of the minutes. 4.1 is the January 13 regular meeting, and January 31st was a board workshop. Both of these have been provided to you. Are there any changes and amendments to either one? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
Adam Kramer, so moved.
Second.
To clarify, that's for both sets. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry. Thank you very much. We move now to the President and CEO report. Darren.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. It's great to see everybody in person again this month. Let's start with our safety tip, Ted's tips. Ted, good morning.
Good morning. Morning. This is always such a great project that we have here at the airport with these houses. I actually saw a C note in one of the $100 bill in one of those little containers, and I've never seen that before. So, trustees, Chairman Carey, CEO Mr. Griffin, thanks for this opportunity. Today we're going to talk about egress. It's kind of a funny word, but important. Comes from Latin, like a lot of our words do, meaning going out. So, over the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of construction projects. I'm sure that as you came into the airport today, you saw the construction walls for the escalator replacement project, which is scooting right along. We're on schedule. These construction walls are going to go up as we get these projects going, and there'll be signs saying, okay, the egress flow is going to change. So we'll have signs and arrows pointing us to the right direction. I know all the airport managers, the airport project managers are concerned with safety at these times. Construction projects, things change, so that's their utmost concern is the safety of getting people out of the building in an emergency. Now, humans typically will exit a building the same way they enter it. And which leads me to the safety tip. Always look for a different exit when you're in a building you're not familiar with. Hotels, concert halls, sports arena, restaurants, and even something as simple as a grocery store. So this is our second floor. We're there in the boardroom. And now most people, most people come up the front door, up this set of stairs, through this door, up this little stairs here, over and into the boardroom. In an emergency, people have a tendency to go out the same way, right? Back out this way. Now, I'm going to pick on one of my projects coming up, and we're going to remodel this area right in here. So this part right here, with the exception of maybe some late off-hour work, I'm going to make sure that exit's always open. But let's just say something happens right here. And you're in the boardroom, and you need to exit, and you can't go this way. So we have a secondary exit where you come out here, make a left-hand turn all the way down to the restrooms, down this hallway, a short little jog, down these steps, another little jog, and down these, and it takes you right out to ticketing. Then always, in an emergency, exit completely out of the building. So I like to tell stories. It helps me, prove my point or give the good illustration. And here several years ago, probably 10 now, my current wife and I were in San Francisco in one of the high rises. 3 o'clock in the morning, the alarm goes off. She wakes up, I wake up, she goes, "What's that?" And I go, "Well, that's the fire alarm." I had to stop her. She was getting ready to run out the door and get out of the building. I said, "No, just wait. Get dressed. We'll check the door." You guys have heard me say this before. If you're in that situation, you check the door, see if it's warm. If it's warm, stay where you're at. That means there's a fire on the other side of that door or some kind of heat that's, you shouldn't be walking into. So I checked the door, looked through the peephole, there's no smoke. I opened the door, looked, there's no smoke. By now she's dressed. I go, "Okay, let's go." She takes off like a shot. Leaves me in the hallway. And she's down the stairs and out the door. And as I get down to the exit, out into this open area, a lot of hotels in San Francisco have these little porte-cochees where you can pull in to check in because there's hardly any parking on the streets. Well, I came out a door. It wasn't this particular hotel, but kind of the same thing. I came out a door right in here, and everybody's in here milling around, talking. Now, the engines are rolling. You can hear them. They're on the way. I come out there and look. I'm like, "No, I'm start walking across the street." "Where are you going?" "Well, I'll be darned if I'm going to stand underneath a building that might be burning." I go across. My wife follows me. Another couple goes. 4 or 5 more. And then finally the whole group walks across the street. So always exit completely out of the building. Look for that secondary exit. And everybody stay safe. That is the safety tips for today. Any questions?
Great information.
Great.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Ted. Okay, Mr. Chair, I do have a few comments this morning. First, just a general update on our passenger traffic. Pleased to say over the last, I'd say, week or 10 days, our traffic has turned positive again against 2019. Starting to see the effects of the Omicron wave passing already. And we're also now measuring against 2020 because, as you'll all recall, 2 years ago, we had not quite yet been hit. And so we have a couple months of really strong numbers of early 2020. So we're about 5% below those numbers. So kind of in between those 2 years, which is a good place to be. And, I think optimistic about our quick recovery again from the latest wave and what our traffic will look like this spring. However, we continue to see a lot of volatility from the airlines in terms of service. We've seen more regionalization happening now with all the legacy carriers trying to push more flights to the hubs, less point-to-point. American has done a more than 20% system-wide takedown of capacity. In May, we've seen almost half their seats pulled out of our market in just the month of May. We don't know what comes after that. We don't think that will sustain, but just lots of adjustments. So still headwinds in terms of, what are the seats that we have in our market. Next week, our team will be meeting with American to talk directly about, why they're making some of these decisions, because if I told you we understood it, I'd be lying. I don't think anybody really understands right now what the airline thinking is, and it's very short term, month to month. So overall, I think our numbers speak for themselves, and we're optimistic, but you have to kind of keep pounding the table and getting them to look at your data so they clearly know the value proposition that we represent. Next, just a general reminder that both our police and fire groups agreed to 1-year contract extensions last summer at our request in order to buy ourselves some time and kind of avoid a lengthy negotiation when we were still dealing with major COVID impacts. So we are now ready to move forward with multi-year contract extension negotiations with both groups. Both groups have submitted their intent to us to negotiate. We've responded. The teams have been formed and will begin meeting within the next few weeks. We're looking forward to working with both groups, getting to those long-term agreements that provide security for all of the members, as well as security for us in our budgeting. So we have a long-term view of what our employee costs will be, just like we achieved with the Teamsters. So excited to get that going. We'll be back to talk to the board about those negotiations as needed. And of course, all of those contracts will come here hopefully no later than May for board approval before we get into the next budget. Quick update on 5G. It's talked about a lot in January, and now it's kind of disappearing because it was largely a self-inflicted crisis from the FAA and the FCC. The bottom line is there are no impacts here. You can tell that to your friends and neighbors that ask you about 5G. There are really no impacts. Well, I won't say no. There are minor impacts in some of the larger markets, but the FAA has approved almost all aircraft that are flying commercially to operate in the 5G areas where that band is operating. Just a lot of pre-coordination that should have occurred that didn't and led to a bunch of tense moments. But, you know, I think we're past that. So if you do hear anything or concerns from anybody, please let me know. But we have no concerns whatsoever here on 5G. Our ticket hall expansion, pleased to report that we submitted a budget increase to the airlines for their approval to go from $20 million to their budget increase. Their share was $5.3 million. We talked through that with them. The airlines have 30 days when we present a ballot to spend their money, essentially, and they have 30 days to disapprove the ballot. If they don't do anything, then that's an approval. But we typically wait 30 days to make sure we haven't had the ballot disapproved. In this instance, the airlines were so supportive of this particular project that they actually sent us letters approving the project, which is unusual. I've never seen that, to be honest with you, but certainly appreciate it. The ticket hall, the Planning and Construction Committee got an update. We will, in the very near future, bring the board kind of the finished design. It's come a long ways with our McCarthy team and our RSNH design team. I'm really excited about the product, and while we are spending more money, I think we're getting an excellent ROI for it. It's going to be the ticket hall that takes us a long ways into the future, and that is really exciting for, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, not that much money when you're talking about airport capital projects. So a lot to be excited about there. And then lastly, a quick reminder on the mask mandate. I know Governor Sisolak is speaking to this and other COVID issues later this morning. We're anticipating there'll be a change in that. We don't know what those details might be, but the mask mandate inside the airport and inside aircraft comes from the TSA and pretty much directly from the administration. So we will wait to see. That mandate expires on March 18th. We have no intelligence that they may change that. We don't know if they'll extend it. Of course, once restrictions are eased in other states and in our state, I think that'll put more pressure on the administration to decide what's the long-term plan for masking in airports and onboard aircraft. We're not hearing anything from the industry yet, but I just want to remind everybody listening that it won't change anything inside the airport. It will change in all non-public spaces. So once the governor releases that restriction, we'll be able to do things different in meetings like this, depending on the exact language that comes out. But we'll be watching that closely. Mr. Chair, that concludes my CEO remarks. Everybody has the CEO package this month. Lots of great information in there. Thank you, sir.
Some comments? Trustee Cunningham.
I just have a quick question. In your report, you indicate that the survey is on the website. Do you want us to participate in the passenger survey or not?
Please do. Absolutely.
You guys, okay. So for, the trustees will just go on
Absolutely.
to your website and participate. Thank you.
Other comments? Trustee Sparazzo?
Just, I guess, question for Darren, and thank you for tracking the airlines. Just, it seems to be a trend, and I guess what I'm concerned about is I'm not sure it's a short-term trend. And is this trend going to change to smaller aircrafts like your JSX and others in the future, kind of the Uber of the skies almost? And how are we looking at that? For two reasons. Number one, the labor market. If you read anything, this is challenging in itself with retirees, people going into different professions. And number two, they say the commodities, parts, all those things, it's going to take quite some time to, that's not going to be a year or two from everything I'm reading on how this is going to turn around. So I understand. So just reading the reports, any thoughts on that? Because everything I'm reading, that this is potentially not a short-term disruption on this hub-to-hub flight path, and we would be significantly impacted by something like that. And we're doing our master plan and spending all this money doing these things, and I don't know if the air service industry is going to be evolving to more like the specific, those smaller type carriers in a mid-sized market like ours.
Sure. Mr. Chair, I'll take that. Thank you for the question, and it's a crystal balling effort that is pretty challenging these days, that's for sure. What I look at are, one, the demand here, just based on population growth, is going to continue to grow. Airlines are making major purchases of full-size aircraft. They're in production of Boeing and Airbus, and they have contracts out years now. And honestly, we've been surprised at some of the orders that have gone in. So we know the legacy carriers, the large regional carriers, are still buying those 737s and larger aircraft. Their challenge right now is staffing, to your point, and that they don't have enough, especially below the wing staff, which are often subcontracted out. So they're struggling right now, which is why we see them focusing on their hubs, we believe. Once they all start to do the same thing, they're still in competition with each other. And we expect that behavior will change probably later this year as everybody moves back to the hubs, and then they start looking for profitable routes beyond that. I think we're going to continue to be one of those, but we're going to see this seesaw where they go back and forth. I think to your earlier point, smaller aircraft are going to be a bigger market share than they were pre-pandemic. And you see that with AHA. You see it with more small aircraft point-to-point flying, the air taxi on demand. All of that people are more open to now than they used to be. And as a transportation facility, we have to be able to provide infrastructure and support that as well, not just the large air carriers. So it makes our job a little bit more complex, I would say, in thinking about the projects that we're working on. This was a conversation we had after the concourse redevelopment workshop in terms of where's our plan for small aircraft? Not everybody needs a jet bridge, right? And we show a plan where it's all just jet bridges. So I think we're going to have some really interesting conversations around ground loading, small aircraft that need to access our terminal area, and being able to provide for all of them. So it's a great time for us to be planning our future infrastructure and looking at this and making sure we can accommodate small aircraft, large aircraft. All of it, I think we're going to see more of.
I guess just one more question on that. The smaller aircraft, and correct me if I'm wrong, that fly out of the FBOs, are they paying the same fees as the larger aircraft because those carriers don't require a TSA screening? So you're just jumping on. And people like that, and especially nowadays. And, you know, I know we did our contracts with our FBOs, and I'm glad you're looking at that because I think there's going to be large expansion in that growth area. So has that been looked at as part of the budget? I should know the answer to this question, but those fees on the landing and with those smaller aircrafts?
The smallest aircraft don't pay the same fees. They pay fuel flowage, so they get gas here and they pay for every gallon like everybody else does. Once the aircraft gets to a certain weight, then they pay landing fees like everybody else pays. But the smallest aircraft that are below, I think, 10,000 pounds, they don't pay us a landing fee. It's almost minimal. So it is a better value proposition for aircraft that size because the overhead is lower. Now you're carrying less passengers, so you can't generate the same revenue. But in our conversations with the FBOs, I mean, they're both full right now. I get this all the time of how busy they are. Some of you fly through the FBOs and you see it yourselves. And so that's why we do have FBO expansion happening here. We're going to need all of that infrastructure. And those customers are on a different revenue and expense model, but all of them pay in some way to the cost of the airfield, contributing to the runway cost and help us pay those bills. Absolutely.
Other comments by trustees? Thank you very much. Okay. Takes us to are there any board member reports or updates at this time? On to item number 10 items, which we have none. We'll take on item 9.1, which is our first business item. This item was heard by the Planning Commission, and it's a consideration of the Pavement Management Program for Professional Services. This was reviewed and approved by the Planning Committee. Mr. Juzik? Other comments on this? Would you like a presentation? Seeing no comments, I'd like to invite a motion to approve this item.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That motion will carry. Thank you. This takes us to item 9.2, which is authorization for the President and CEO to award a contract for Phase 4 of the Building Control System Replacement Project with automatic temperature controls. This would be presented by David Pittman. It was reviewed and approved by the Planning Committee. Would the board wish to report on this? Seeing none, I'll invite a motion by the board.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by the board. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion will carry. I'm sorry. I forgot to say opposed. Hearing none. Okay. Thank you. 9.3, the authorization and the president of the airport to approve concession federal relief allocations under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 in the amount of $1.8 million plus, and revise allocations as required by the Federal Aviation Administration. This would be presented by Shauna Carpenter. It was reviewed and approved by the Finance Committee. Is a report requested? Seeing none, I'll invite a motion for approval.
Move to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say. Oh, you do have a comment? Please.
I want to thank staff on this. I'm sorry, I just wanted to thank staff and tell them how much I appreciate it. We went, as the board knows, we went through rounds of this to help our concessionaires, and just want to thank you guys for all your work on putting this together and making it happen. So,
Mr. Chair?
Please.
I'd like to piggyback on Trustee Safraza's recognition there. It has been quite the journey for Shauna and Alex and some of our other finance folks. This has been some of the most complex math we've had to do in terms of getting money from the FAA and trying to figure out how to fairly allocate it with their very strict interpretation of airport concessionaire agreements. And I also have to give the FAA some credit for listening to airports. They rolled this out last summer, and it was widely shouted down, quite frankly, because it just did not fit the needs of many airports. And so they adjusted, and our team then went to work like many airports did, and every airport is different. And so it's been incredibly complex. The plan that Shauna has come up with is fair, equitable. We believe in it. We probably still have some negotiations to do with the FAA on it because they are way more involved in the airport business than they should be right now. But, you know, it's temporary, and we'll work with them like we do on so many things. But thank you for calling that out, that recognition, and just a fantastic job by Shauna and the team.
I would just add that Shauna gave a wonderful, detailed presentation on Tuesday. It was excellent. Thank you very much.
Very detailed.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry. Thank you. This takes us to board comments and requests for future agenda items. Does anyone have one? Jennifer?
Yes, I don't know if this is something I bring to staff or we bring back to the board, but I'm really interested in the utilization of the outdoor board that sits on the airport property. And in thinking about, well, the construction for one, and what a great opportunity to utilize that board to update the community on construction that's going on at the airport, but also near and dear to my heart, air service development. And it seems to me to be such a tremendous opportunity for us to utilize for new air service messaging. So I just want to pose that as more of a question. What's the right way to go about this in terms of analyzing it and seeing whether the airport can control the use of that board, or how that works?
Sure. Thank you, Trustee Cunningham. I'd be happy to take that for action, and we can probably bring it back to like the Finance Committee, and if the entire board's interested, we can talk about it in a board meeting as well, and kind of look at the options there and what our contractual requirements are and opportunities to leverage it for its highest and best use considering its location. I certainly hear you on that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Billboard.
Billboard, outdoor.
Trustee Jay?
What part are we under right now?
We're under board comments.
Comments, okay. Okay, comments.
requests
Just
for
wanted to make sure we're fine. Our COC meeting will be held next Thursday. We are going to do it live. Trustee Rose and I decided for last month to postpone it because it was going to be a Zoom, and we feel this committee is very, very important. So we wanted to do a live meeting. So I'm inviting everybody out to the meeting, 5:30 next Thursday. I'm going to get with Brian. We're going to kind of come up with a real action-packed agenda for the meeting. But I think this committee's very, very important, and having a live meeting just emphasizes our importance on it. So we're down in the river room. Okay, yeah, downstairs in the river room. Thank you.
You. I have an announcement to read as well under board comments. Pursuant to section 9150 of our bylaws, I am appointing a temporary board committee to review our president and CEO's contract. The committee will be made up of the current board officers and will consist of Vice Chair Adam Kramer, Secretary Richard Jay, and Treasurer Jennifer Rose, and myself. The committee's task will be to review the contract, including but not limited to the term of the agreement in light of the upcoming capital improvement projects that we will be working on for the next 5 to 10 years. As the board may recall, Mr. Griffin only has a 5-year contract which will expire in August of 2025. The committee will be charged with bringing to the board a recommendation regarding Mr. Griffin's contract no later than June 9th, the date of our June board meeting. Following that, the committee will be dissolved. So that, comments, please?
I have a big comment on that one because it was very important for me for the whole board to be able to weigh in on the CEO's contract. I hate that subcommittee. I'm just going to put it out there. I want the opportunity to be able to weigh in on our That's the one of the few things we get to do as a board. He's our only direct report. And I just feel strongly it should be the entire board. I may be in the minority on that, but I'm just going to speak it here. We had that subcommittee before, and it created some challenges, in my opinion. So just as a board member, I feel it's important for the entire board to review the CEO's contract.
I appreciate your comment. Is there any other comment on the item? Jennifer?
So this is the first I'm hearing of this morning. This is not something we all discussed previously. So I'm just curious, and I don't have an issue if you decide to have a committee serving on it. I have no issue with that at all. But I would appreciate some understanding of why you want a subcommittee rather than the whole board like Trustee Sferrazza wants. What's the determining factor there for you, Chair?
I felt that the officers would represent a good cross-section of the board, our ability to work quickly, go through the issues and focus on them. We would simply be working on recommendations, and we'll do our very best to keep the entire board apprised. This isn't an action that we'll be taking that would not come back to this board. As I stated, we're trying to do this quickly, and I think that we'll also be more nimble and have an ability to work through the issues quickly. And so that's been my decision on this.
So if I could ask Anne a follow-up question, please, if you don't mind. I just would like to know if the other board members would have the ability to sit in on the meeting of the committee if they wanted to hear the full discussion, so that they might have more information when it comes back to the full board for the vote.
As is always the case, it's a public meeting. You can sit in on the discussion, you simply can't talk.
I just wanted to make that clear so that everybody here that felt compelled to be there knew that that was certainly your right. Thank you.
Other comments? Trustee Cunningham.
I appreciate your reasoning and rationale behind it. I have to go with Trustee Sferrazza because I too feel it's the most important role of our being a trustee on the airport. I am interested though, and so it is an open meeting and we have to discuss it in an open meeting. True, we can't have, okay, thank you. Yeah, I think I appreciate the being nimble and getting things done quickly, but I have to say that I'd really like to be part of it as well.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments by the board?
I would just like to, with that same sentiment, totally agree it should be open to the whole group. We had these problems. This is just being brought to us and telling us who's on this committee, and so I totally agree with the speakers talking here of being much open for the whole group. Been through this.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll ask, does anyone else have any comments or requests for future agenda items?
Yeah, I want that on a future agenda. I'm sorry to discuss whether it should be the full board or a subcommittee.
Thank you. Okay, I'll turn now to item 11, which is upcoming RTA meetings. And this is the Noise Advisory Committee is on the 17th. Also on the 17th is the Community Outreach Committee. On March 7th, we have the CEO Users Working Group. We have our two Finance Development, Business Development Committee, as well as Planning and Infrastructure Committees meeting on the 8th, and we will have our board meeting on the 10th. Any comments or questions on those? That takes us to public comment. Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Thank you very much. At this point, we're adjourned.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. That was the, I think you made a record, Sean.
You made the record, Sean, yes.
That was the fastest
Under
ever.
an hour.
Good.
48 minutes.
How are you?
You get a prize for the day.
Recording